Europe editor Catherine Nicholson. Catherine, given the number of opposing views, will those EU leaders be able to reach a common position?
Well, one issue that we know, or we're told that all member states' leaders agree on, is that there is urgency in this matter. And also, we're told that all member states agree that there is a need to create some sort of recovery fund to enable the European Union member states to get back on their feet economically from this crisis, to rebuild. We've seen GDP estimates for all across Europe looking very dire indeed. We're told France, for example, set to enter a historic recession, the likes of which hasn't been seen since the end of World War II. Where the difficult conversations are going to come will be on exactly what this recovery fund will look like. That means how much money will be going into it and coming out of it. Where will that money be coming from, and how will that money be shared out? They're very contentious issues. We know that this made for a very long meeting of the Eurozone's finance ministers just a couple of weeks ago. They were locked in discussions for 16 hours and passed it back to the heads of state at the end of that. There is a fear for the more fragile economies such as Spain, Italy, that they will be disadvantaged because they have a lesser ability to pump money into their own economies to get them back on their feet. For example, we've seen Germany announce a €1 trillion plan. That's something that Italy just cannot afford at this point. So that's why there's a push for the Eurozone particularly to come together to jointly borrow on the international market. As we know, we've talked about this, haven't we? The Netherlands, Germany, particularly opposed to that idea. So in terms of this recovery fund, Spain has been talking about bringing money together at a fixed pot and then issuing that money on a grant basis. One European official who spoke in a briefing just yesterday said, though, that this is a really difficult idea for some member states to swallow. France perhaps might have a bit more luck with its proposition to issue that money on a loan basis. But then, of course, there would have to be talks about, how you would issue those loans, how much and to whom. EU officials are hoping today that enough will be agreed upon to enable the European Commission to go away and come back in just the next couple of weeks with some kind of firm plan, with the broad outlines of a recovery fund, because they're very aware that the clock is ticking on this.
But what does it mean for the EU in the months to come? I mean, for instance, such as when are borders going to be reopened, and certainly what's going to be the long-term implications for its budget?
Absolutely, Annette. There are some really concrete questions that European citizens are asking about these issues that impact their lives very directly. So everything, basically, I think we can say from here on in for the next few years in the European Union is going to be seen through a lens of this coronavirus crisis. That includes, for example, the Green Deal that Ursula von der Leyen unveiled just a couple of months ago, policies on climate change, on the digital transition. But as you say, the European Union does still need to finalise its budget for the next 7 years, starting in January. And we are told that because of this being a financial and economic issue, this will all be bundled in together with this recovery fund. So could this make agreeing on a budget harder? That's something to be seen. Questions are being asked around the continent about whether there might need to be some kind of interim budget, a transitional measure to allow the EU to have a little bit more time to deal with this crisis. On the issue of borders that you brought up as well, a lot of people asking about this. Currently, people can move around, generally speaking, within the European Union. But there's the issue of summer holidays coming up, questions being asked about how are the member states going to coordinate or not on this issue. Issues of border openings and closures and public health, they are national competencies. The EU cannot tell member states what to do, but we know that Ursula von der Leyen and other EU leaders are very, very keen for there to be coordination on this so that the European Union moves ahead as one body.